Good morning. I'm pleased to be here with you today to roll out the first set of grades for the pilot release of our Grade.DC.gov program, which we know is very early in this process, and I think you know that these would be very preliminary at this stage, but we want to start to incorporate this into the culture of how we look at the performance of our agencies. Last month, I announced Grade.DC.gov, which of course is a new pilot program that I think will revolutionize how government uses technology to collect the views of our residents through a variety of popular social media sites. The D.C. government, as we know, has improved tremendously over the last decade, and we want to continue to be able to use feedback from our residents, which we now are able to access in unprecedented ways as a feedback loop to continue to improve. And of course, using today's technology will give us an opportunity to continue to improve and not be left behind. I've had a chance, by the way, to talk to some of my colleagues in the region, and some of them are interested in being able to use what we have here, especially as we continue to perfect it. I want to thank the 5 agencies who courageously stepped up to be the pilot effort in this regard. They're all here today. First of all, our DMV Director, Lucinda Babers. And by the way, one of the reasons that we wanted to have these 5 agencies do this was not only because they are agencies that are used at a very high level of frequency by the residents of the city, but they also have, these directors are exceptional, and they are people who are oriented towards continuous improvement, and they were people who we knew could deal with this. So Lucinda, of course, runs DMV. We have our DCRA Director, Nick Majette, who is here, DDOT Director, Terry Bellamy, DPW Director, Bill Howland, and I think Jesus is on vacation, and John Stokes is here representing DPR. I also want to thank our technology partner, newBrandAnalytics, which worked with us for months to be able to roll out what will be a continuing improving process. And you'll hear from their CEO in a second. I also want to acknowledge our labor union partners. I see Geo Johnson is here, and Eric Bunn. I don't see Eric. He may be joining us along the way, and we want to hear from Geo as well as we unfold today. Before we get to the grades, I want to share some of what we're learning from this project, and we are very much in a learning phase at this stage. I think some of you will recall that in the State of the District address, I noted that among the ways we can ensure residents have a high quality of life is to provide them with the best return on their tax dollars, that every dollar should be spent wisely on a government that works, and we talked about that in the State of the District. That's why Grade.DC was formulated in the first place, and that's why we're pleased to be able to be what I think is the first in the nation system to take this on. We formally launched the program on June 13th, and residents immediately began providing data on which we base the agency grades that we're sharing today. And these are agencies where, kind of characteristically, you'll hear from people who have a problem. And we're trying to now move the system towards not only hearing from people who have a problem, but people who have had a good experience as well. There's an independent study that was done by Georgetown, and we've cited it a few times, that showed that our agencies, especially those that are involved in this pilot, are perceived as performing at a high level. That study we talked about, I think it was done back in December of 2011, and it said we were at the fastest rate ever of addressing constituent issues. So today's grades represent composite scores from the people who provided online feedback through Twitter, through text, through web surveys, and other social media sites. I hope I don't even have to say this, but I will. It obviously doesn't represent every person that is served by the agencies. And again, not to be redundant, but represents certainly in these early stages people who may have had one or another experience with the agency that they would like to improve upon. Part of the reason why we're rolling it out now is to really focus on how we'll improve over time, given the feedback that we're getting. And we think the grades will go up because even though we launched this only about a little over a month ago now, if you look at what we did in June versus July, which are the grades through last Wednesday, the grades already have started to go up, and we think they will continue to go up. I think you have the grades in your packet. The June grades range from a C- to a C+. The July 1 through July 18th range from a C- to a B. It's also worth noting that each agency got quite a few positive reviews, as well as the other information that was gleaned as well. We will hear from at least one agency. Bill Howland is going to speak to what we're doing with DPW, and you'll hear from the others too, perhaps. As I mentioned, we're going to constantly strive to be able to improve outcomes, and we certainly won't be satisfied until every agency gets an A. What I'd like to do now is bring up the CEO of newBrandAnalytics, Kristen Muehlner, who will talk a little bit about how we got to this stage, how we've built this technology. And I don't think that there's any other government in the nation right now that is trying this. And again, it's a great way to be able to use continuing to evolve contemporary technology to measure the perceptions of people who are using the services in this city. Kristen.
Thank you. Good morning. Well, we certainly at newBrandAnalytics have loved the opportunity to work with the city, with the mayor's office, and with the heads of these agencies. We have been delighted with the willingness to engage, to learn, and to understand the customer feedback process. And it is really revolutionary what the city is trying to do here, certainly both in terms of government, but not only that, in terms of private sector use of customer feedback technology as well. Companies for a long time, governments for a long time have looked at ways to try to gather customer feedback and customer sentiment and use it to improve their organizations. However, what we're helping the city do, and what is very new, is using these new methods, social, text, unstructured commentary, as a way to gather the feedback. What's neat about that is through these kinds of interactions and through this kind of feedback, we get more nuance, we get more richness to the information that we understand, and we get more actionable data that we can use with customers to help improve processes. So again, I really applaud the city's willingness to use these kinds of technologies and these methods to gather feedback, because they really provide a richer experience and a richer opportunity. We're certainly learning through this process together. As we have executed the pilot, there have been a number of things that we have discovered that are somewhat unique to government agencies. In particular, what we see in some of the reviews are a tendency to comment on policy, for example, when that is in fact not a reflection of the agency's specific delivery of service. So we have looked at ways to try to address that, both in our algorithm and in the way that we're using this information for customer engagement and customer feedback through the agencies. Finally, what I like to say is what we are doing here is very consistent with the way we approach our private sector clients. And I think that's very important, because we want to make sure that we hold ourselves as partners with respect to improving the constituent experience here in D.C. At the same high level that anyone in the private sector would, and that is certainly happening. So again, we are delighted to be working with you all, delighted to be working through this experience, and think that this is just a great opportunity for the city. And certainly as a 15-year resident of D.C., I'm delighted at the opportunity to be able to provide feedback and do it in a meaningful way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kristen. And one of the things we've learned too is that, contrary perhaps to popular belief, there are a lot of our citizens who don't know exactly what agency performs what particular function. I think we've had an instance in each case where an agency has been assumed to be involved in a particular service or a particular function, and yet it is another agency. So this is going to be an educational process in that regard as well. We have with us one of our leading labor leaders in the city today, a man that we've thoroughly enjoyed working with, and I appreciate him coming today. The gentleman who heads AFSCME here in the District of Columbia, Geo Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and audience. First off, it's an honor just to be able to talk about this program. When you're in the greatest city in the world, you got one of the greatest mayors in the world, and some of the greatest citizens in the world, it's always an honor to be able to talk about it. You know, when we talk about progress, then you're able to talk about things that make progress happen. This wasn't something that just happened to happen. It was something to give us a gauge on how we do and serve the citizens of the city. Now, she said 15 years. I can talk about 63 years. And I've seen services go from one level to a totally different level. One of the things that I attribute to Mayor Gray is that it's always been improvement. We've seen now a system put into place that gives us a scorecard. Not just a scorecard to say how bad we're doing, but how good we do as well. That makes a difference. Now it's an educating process for not only the employees, but the citizens as well. We don't want it to be just, let me call in because this didn't happen, that didn't happen. You know, it's not that system. Some folks didn't get their tree limbs picked up at a certain time, and it wasn't because people didn't do it when they were supposed to. It was because people didn't have a chance to get to it till they had a chance to get to it. It's not a snitching line. It's a line that allows people to understand I grade. Now, when things don't go right at home, we pull people into the bedroom and say, look, take care of this bedroom. I want it straightened up. Look at the dishes in the sink. I want that taken care of. Look at the grass. I need that cut. Well, it's the same principle. Now we can go back, and if you looked at your graphs, the good part about it, each one improved. Now, if there was no improvement, I might have passed on this chance to come up here and talk today. Now, if we're starting off with improvement, that means we can't do anything but build. That's the whole success to this program, building. The more that we get involved in it, the more that we roll it out, the more that people get involved in it, then we will be a better city than we've already become. Like I said, this is just the beginning. 1 month. No, they're not high rollers. You didn't see somebody jump from a C- to a B+. But you saw improvement. We can go back to some years when I came out of DPW, and trash was real low on the totem pole. We got complaints before Bill came and the mayor started working with that department. Allen and them, it was one of the worst departments we had. DMV. How many of y'all had to go down and get your licenses? Y'all know. You know, so it's not like a joke that's being played out. It's reality. So as long as we all pitch in, as long as we continue to take the path of improvement, our city will remain the greatest city in the world. We can't let nobody take that away from us. And like I said, I'm proud to be dealing with one of the greatest mayors in the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gio. We asked one of our directors, and we'd welcome any of the others too, because they're very experienced and excellent directors, and I don't want to be redundant, but that's one of the reasons why they were selected, because they are people who have been around public services for a while and understand how difficult it is to deliver public services to people, and as a result, not only are committed to continuous improvement, but also are able to understand the feedback that we get. So I asked Bill Howland if he would come up. Bill is an experienced administrator, runs one of the most important agencies in the District of Columbia, and these are functions that if they don't work well, we know it immediately, don't we, Bill? And they work pretty well in the District of Columbia. Bill, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate the opportunity to come up and speak. The main reason why I wanted to speak was just to say thank you to the 1,300 employees at DPW for day in and day out doing what they need to do. One of the reasons why I think our grade jumped up in July was a storm that occurred in late June. We did a lot of cleanup, and I think people recognize the value of what we provided. DDOT and DPW working out there and picking up all that storm debris, and there was a lot of storm debris. What didn't get recorded, and I do want to really thank the trash collectors, particularly July 5th, 6th, and 7th, when it was 100 degrees every day, and that trash needed to get picked up. And folks were out there when the weather people were telling you it's unhealthy for anyone to be outside, and these folks are out there picking up twice as much trash as they normally pick up because there was so much damage as a result of the power outage going on. So I can't thank the men and women who were at DPW for all the hard work they did during that period of time. The other thing that we did, one of our most popular services is the household hazardous waste, that Saturday collection. People love the program. We have about 2,000 people come every Saturday. Even when it was 104 degrees, we had 1,300 people show up to dispose of their household hazardous waste. For those of you who remember, before we went to weekly collections, monthly collections, we were having about 2,000 people come every 6 months, and we get about that many people coming every Saturday, once a month. So that's all I want to say about that.
You heard from the CEO of newBrandAnalytics a couple of minutes ago, but I want to ask Zach Bawazi if he would come up and explain in a little bit more detail how the data are generated, how they are analyzed, and how we get to some of the conclusions, I guess, that have been reached from a variety of sources, recognizing that a lot of the data we get are subjective data. It's not necessarily a numerical score or anything else we get. It's creating, I guess, an algorithm in part to be able to figure out what to do with the information. Yeah.
Thank you very much. As Mayor Gray said, it's a bit of a long system that goes in place as we collect this feedback. So we collect feedback from multiple sources. We collect feedback from social media sites like Facebook and Twitter. We collect feedback from community blogs. We also collect feedback via text survey and web survey. And of the information that we've gathered across the 5 agencies, the most prolific source of our data has been from the web surveys. So individuals that are going to Grade.DC.gov, they're selecting either the agency or the location, and they're providing feedback across a number of different facets of the agency. So when we look at the feedback that we're gathering, we tend to look at what we call reviews, and each of the reviews can be divided into insights. And what our human network and our natural language processing algorithm does is it looks at the reviews and determines whether someone is talking about service, whether they're talking about facilities, or whether they're talking about personnel. And so, more than just seeing, the DMV is great or the pool was fantastic, we're able to gather feedback from the web surveys that are saying, I had a great interaction with Mary, I wish that the lines were not as long, and the facility that I visited was extremely clean. So we're pulling out from that one review 3 different insights. And what we're able to do is provide back to the mayor and his office and also to each of the different agencies is this is what your overall grade is, and then this is what your grade is across each one of those different aspects. Again, across service, across personnel, and across location. Now, not to get into too many details, the way that the insights are graded is we have a human network go in and assign whether the grade on a range is extremely positive to extremely negative, and they're assigned a numerical grade. And then what this numerical grade ultimately does, it rolls up across the entire set of data. And what's important here is that, as Mayor Gray mentioned earlier, and as Gio mentioned earlier, we've only looked at essentially 7 weeks of data. We've looked at the month of June, and we've looked at July 1st through July 18th. And what's going to be most important about this program as we leave the pilot stage and we move on to additional agencies this fall is that the trend of the data is most important. And so we're very excited to see right now that grades have improved. And we're excited, and we think that that is a result of, one, we've honed our survey. We've made our survey, I think, more acceptable and able to collect more direct feedback than the previous version. We've also seen some efforts that the different agencies have taken into place to not only improve their service, but to call out to citizens, please provide this positive feedback on either the surveys or on your social sites. And it's important because, oftentimes people have a tendency to complain online. And so when we see, and I am actually very excited about the grades as they were for June and where they're going in July, because if you can encourage people to provide positive feedback, what we're measuring here is we're not giving just, this is the grade of the agency, everything taken into consideration. This is a grade of public sentiment and what they are saying. There are numerous other methods of feedback that is being solicited, through the different agencies. But we're capturing what is being said in the public sphere, because whether you like it or not, it's being said, and we're adding a set of standards around how you can improve, again, across the service, across locations in the facilities. Sure. Zach Boissy. Sure. B as in boy, O-I, S as in Sam, I. And I'm the Client Services Director, also serving as the project manager for this project. Zach, Z-A-C-H.
Blogs you're following that you use to rate district government services?
District of DeBonis. What are the other ones that we're going after? There's 5. We've looked after 5 different blogs that are provided by the agencies as ones that we should be sourcing from. We're not sourcing what has been written by the authors, but instead what has been said in the comment fields on each of those 5 community blogs, and I'm sure we can provide at some stage.
Using what the author of the blog is writing as much as what the visitors to the blog are commenting.
Correct. The comment section. Sure.
I had a couple of questions as regards your process. In the mayor's press release on second paragraph, you say that you're releasing these results because you believe at this point you have a sufficient sample size. What is your sample size? Because I've counted up the number of responses on this sheet, and it's just over 1,000. And we have 600,000 residents in D.C. Do you think 1,000 is 1,000 the sample size? Or have I missed
That's
something?
the sample size of the number of reviews that we've captured. What that doesn't address is how many insights. Now, as I think,
Wait, just back up.
yep.
The sample. Okay. What does the review mean, and what does sample size mean? Okay. In my English. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So a review is if I visit the DMV and praise the agency for the experience that I've had. If I say 3 different things within that one review, it's one review.
Oh, where's this review captured?
Either
You go
through,
to the website?
correct,
Okay, so a review would be posted on the website Grade.DC.
be captured through the website. It's not posted to the public. This is captured through, yes,
That's a review.
correct.
Okay. What else adds to your sample size?
So feedback that we're collecting from Facebook, from Twitter, from the community blogs.
Which community blogs?
That was a question that was just asked. We'll have to provide the list of the 5.
Do you consider Mike DeBonis's column on the Washington Post a community blog? I think it's a blog on the Washington Post. It's not a community blog.
I think it's the comments that we're capturing, the feedback to what's been written.
Give me an example of one community blog, not a Washington Post blog, a community blog.
DCist?
Do you have the whole list? Does that person have the whole list?
We'll get you. We'll get it to you.
We'll get it to you.
Okay, so what is the total sample size?
Total sample size, what you said, is over 1,000 reviews, and we've got more than 3,000 insights that we've gathered from these reviews.
And what is an insight? Anything from Facebook, Twitter, or community so
So
far?
perhaps I didn't do a great job. Let me give an example again. If I go to the pools over the weekend and say, I had a positive experience with the lifeguard, the pool was clean, and I love the hours of operation. I've now provided 3 insights within my one review. Okay, the first insight is that I've said I had a positive experience with the lifeguard. So that's a comment I've made about the staff. I've said that the pool is clean. That's a comment about the location, an insight about the location. And I've made a comment about the hours of operation. That's an insight about the services offered.
So one person could have 3 or more insights. How, but that's just one person. Is that one person being sampled, or are you considering those 3 insights?
We are considering those 3 insights, but the number that you have totaled up that equals 1,000 is the one review that captures 3 insights. Because we have to grade each one of the insights independently so we can provide a subgrade for the agencies across those 3 different categories.
My last question is, do you have your system set up so a person can't go in? An individual, for example, who might work at a particular agency, can't go in and post multiple comments.
Yeah, so we have been looking at, we can collect the author data, and we have worked actually with the agency heads to find out who are some of the individuals that are constantly providing feedback. It's more of a manual effort because, again, we want to capture everything that's gone out to the public. So if I say something today and tomorrow and Wednesday, every time I say something, it's going out there and people have the chance to review it.
What can you tell us about that? Where are you finding that? Where are these comments? Are there comments that are coming from a DC.gov IP address? I mean, I assume that's what you're saying, that you're looking at author data.
Right.
So you know where they're coming from. Do you have some prolific authors, and do you have authors who are coming from within the DC agencies themselves?
We haven't noticed to date any one person providing 100 surveys. But again, I think one thing that we'll have to look at over time is, are we seeing anyone that's sort of continuously ranting?
What about authors coming from within the agencies themselves?
It's harder for us to determine, whether someone's providing within the walls of this building or the different locations. But we'll continue to look at if we feel that there's been sort of people loading reviews into the system.
I'm not sure you can answer this question, but is the core data you're collecting subject to Freedom of Information Act, or is it considered working papers? Does anybody know? If I did an FOI request on every hit you've had, the 1,000 people, would I get that? Anybody know? Any lawyers? Department heads? Hello?
I mean, I don't know why we would, I don't know why.
I'm sorry. Our camera's not good enough to
Really?
We're hurting, we need help.
I don't know any reason why we wouldn't, Tom. I mean, go back to the fundamental premise underlying this, is that as we've tried to create transparency and yet another way for people to be able to express their views about government services, and for us to be able to, in some kind of organized way, convey what those sentiments are. So, I mean, think about the underlying foundation of this.
Just follow my, could I get an idea of what this contract is? You've got the initial 5 agencies, you're going to expand 10 more in the fall. Is this going to be essentially a citywide by the time you're done, all the major agencies?
Well, yes, but we also, no, we're not measuring the council. If the council wishes to be a part of that, that's a decision they would have to make themselves, of course. Yeah, we talked about that at the when we rolled it out. I think for 3 years, is it $500,000? So roughly $175,000 a year or something thereabouts. Let me finish this. The intent is to also perfect the process as we go. That's why we wanted to select only 5 agencies initially, so that we can continue to inject improvements as we learn from this. Again, we've been in this now barely 5 or 6 weeks, and we could have said we'll roll out the, I got you, Tim. We'll roll out the information, in 3 months or 6 months. But we wanted to give people some kind of feedback, having announced this in June, and let people know not only what we're finding, what the sentiments are that are being expressed, but how we're developing a model that's continuously being refined as well.
Those to actually participate.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're encouraging people too, there's a propensity, and we all know that, there's a propensity to say these things when you had a bad experience, not necessarily when you had a good one. So I think one of the things that the agencies, again, these are very sophisticated and mature agencies, but one of the things they will do, I suspect, too, is to encourage people, and they should. If you had a good experience, please express it. That's a part of marketing the agency services and trying to let people know that the agency is doing some good things. We've encouraged the agencies to do that. Tim, and then Alan, and then Tom.
The Washington Post poll of the weekend, your approval ratings for...
Is it on this subject?
Yes.
Okay.
For providing an array of services was pretty lackluster approval ratings. I think they were net negative overall. These grades are average. So do you think that because these grades are average, that your approval rating accurately reflects the state of the government, at least from these ratings? Or do you think that's an unfair assessment of
I think they're very different measures. I think that this is based on specific comments about specific experiences in specific agencies. This is not measuring me, so I think they're different, Tim.
So what do you think about your approval rating as it relates to providing?
Well, that's not on this.
Well, it's about providing services for the government, which is an important part of what you do.
Obviously, one of the things we're trying to do is continuously improve services. Nobody's tried this before. This is a new approach. It's capturing sentiments as we go along, and we want to use those sentiments to try to reflect them in how the agencies actually operate. One of the things that each agency has done, if you look at the data you have in your packet, is to put out 2 or 3 ways in which they're going to use this information to improve outcomes, and I think customer service is mentioned in several different instances. All right, Tim, let me go on.
You asked 6, 7, 8 questions.
I was under the mic at that point.
So should people look at these grades and say it's average? DC government might not.
You know what? I would hope, you're a sophisticated writer. I would hope that you would reflect what this is, and that is about 5 or 6 weeks of data, 5 or 6 weeks of rolling out a new process. Again, I think we could have held this for many more weeks and come back at a later point. We're simply trying to roll out what we have now and show how we're continuing to try to improve this. Clearly, we didn't have to do this in the first place, but we did it as a way to try to help citizens better engage with their government and feel like their feedback really is being paid attention to. Alan?
Mayor, when you debuted, you said eventually we'd be able to get real-time grades. Do you know when those real-time grades will become available and not be a week or so old?
A week or so old? Isn't that pretty close to real time? I don't know that I would say that. This is an effort, to say that something is a week old is pretty current to me. I mean, frankly, I'm sure you, just like me, you've been involved in research efforts in the past, and some of the data you review may be 2 years old.
I'm using your word.
Okay. Well, that's real time, a week. Tom?
If you look at the pie graphs for each of the agencies, one thing that stands out is the positives and the negatives tend to be the same thing, notably personnel for every single one of them. Does that suggest that when you get right down to it, issues usually don't so much have to do with the agency and policies, but maybe just the fact that some people pull their weight and some don't?
Could be. We know, personnel is a huge part of the agencies that we're talking about here, and that is, DMV is very labor intensive. DPW is very labor intensive. DCRA is labor intensive. As a matter of fact, with the increasing use of technology, that probably is going to reduce somewhat, where we, for example, at DCRA encouraging people to go online, or at DMV encouraging people to go online and do the business they would normally do. I read some of the comments, and some of them actually singled out a person or two in one of the agencies by description. And I'm sure in that particular instance that director is going to pay close attention to that situation.
Also, you mentioned that surrounding governments are interested in this. Do you know who specifically has asked about this?
I had a conversation with the Prince George's County exec about it.
Question in the back, maybe?
Yes.
Did you take a sample and reviews from across the city, and are these grades consistent throughout the city, or did you find that people in some parts of the city more satisfied?
I'll let New Brand Analytics address that. And frankly, one of the reasons for having an entity like this do this is, one, because they've got expertise. The history of this, by the way, if I might, Bruce, is that we were working with New Brand Analytics about them staying in the city. They were thinking about moving elsewhere, and I learned, along with others, about the product that they had. Their private clients, I think, are like restaurants and others, that are involved in commercial services. And it was clear that they were measuring the sentiments of, people who use those services, which seemed to have application to me for public services as well. So that's how we got to this. And so the approach, I guess, isn't new to them. It's new in terms of public services. Let me ask Zach to address your question.
I think one thing that we've done is we've collected feedback where possible down to location level. And so we've collected location data from each one of the agencies that we're measuring each one of the DMVs, we're measuring each one of the, the various parks, et cetera, the pools, the aquatic centers, et cetera. So we have, again, behind this overall agency grade, which is what we said that we were going to share with the public today, we're able to, but again, the sample size being much lower because people, providing handful of comments versus thousands of comments down to location level.
I thought you were going to address my question to the mayor. My question to the mayor is, did you take your reviews, your samples from across the city, and are the grades consistent? Is this grade consistent throughout the city, or did you find that people in some parts of the city were more satisfied with services than others?
I may be misunderstanding the question. I think we can see a wide range of grades across the different locations. We're not able to pinpoint whether residents in one area of the city are different than another area of the city.
You're not able to pinpoint whether residents in some parts of the city are satisfied.
I can't. What I can't tell is if I visit one pool, but it's out of my neighborhood. We can capture that the feedback is on the pool location, not where I live. So it's difficult to tell where the author actually physically lives because they're not providing their personal contact information there.
And the other part of my question is because you're relying on the web here. Where are the people, the citizens reflected who don't have access to the web?
I mean, there are different ways. Again, the purpose of this pilot is to collect the social feedback. It's not all inclusive of all the feedback that's being offered up to the different agencies. But again, we have through mobile feedback, via cell phones. We also have through the website, as you can see behind you, and then other ways that individuals are accessing the internet to provide feedback on their social networks or review sites.
Try one more question. That 1,000 sampling that you have, then you don't know where these people live or what specific place, location they're talking about.
I know the location that they're talking about if they provide which location they visited, but we do not ask for anyone's personal information about where they live.
You can answer my question. Let me go back and try some more time. So then you can tell me that if certain locations are getting better grades than other locations.
Yes, correct.
So which one's getting the best grades and which one are getting the worst grades, location-wise?
We have that information available to the agency directors. We've decided today to share just the overall agency grade.
You're not going to make that information available just yet?
Not yet. This is one of the things, if you remember, this is a pilot program.
Yeah, I want to address what was just said. This is a pilot, and what you learn from a pilot. That's why we selected only 5 agencies. We are 5 weeks into this, so we want to learn from this. I heard the question, I think was inherent in one of your questions too, Bruce, was how do we capture the data for those who may not have the facility yet to use social media? That is an issue that we will look at. I think, frankly, as time wears on, there will be fewer and fewer people who don't use some form of social media. So this is really looking down the road as well. But we recognize that right now we're capturing data from people who use social media. It is not the only index that we use either of how an agency is performing. This is not a be-all and an end-all. It's just simply one technique that we're using to capture the views of people about the services of those agencies. Tim?
If I can just add from the company perspective, what is, since your employer is the District of Columbia, since they're paying this money, what assurance can you give the taxpayers that it's not a possibility this data, maybe not even the current administration, but down the road, if this project continues, is not manipulated for political purposes, like right before election time where suddenly all grades go up? I mean, what is your responsibility to make sure that you're not manipulating the data in response to your employer?
Let's be very clear. What we have done is apply the exact same algorithm and process that we use with our private sector clients to the government. We have absolutely no intention of manipulating or in any other way being coerced, if you will, into applying different methods. As a business, it is important that we have a level of credibility and a level of independence from this information. That's what we're providing a service. And the customer, in this case, the city, can choose to do what they wish, with that data. But again, I think the point here is that this is a means to gather customer feedback and improve experience. It's not necessarily the single and only measure of these organizations, but in fact a way for them to really get better. And I think that's what we really need to focus on.
Will the data be released on a regular basis at a particular moment in time, like monthly, or is it up to the administration to decide what numbers?
Yeah, right now the administration is making the choice on when the data will be released, but we're providing that to them on a daily and weekly basis, and they have the choice on how they want to present that information.
What are the next 10 agencies that are going to be participating?
I don't even know we've decided yet.
But
Still
you know
working
that
on
there are
that.
going to be 10?
Yes, that there will be 10. But that means that there certainly is a universe of agencies to be, selected from, and we're still working on that. Probably in the early part of the new fiscal year.
That's part of the original contract price?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.